Hi everyone. I didn't do record store day yesterday because what I tend to do is I go a few days or a week later and see what's left. And it is what it is. I'm not chasing anything because I don't think anything out there now is absolutely essential for me. They're mostly just like to haves um, because I've already got too much music to listen to. Anyway, I didn't go yesterday, so I went for a bike ride instead. But today I went to contradict myself, I went to a record fair, and I'll talk through that stuff when I eventually get it all cleaned up and played. So we shall see. Um, this particular video was inspired by Rob Walker, whose video I watched a couple of days ago, where he picked 10 records he knows to have listened to more than 100 times. And that was on the back of a competition from Randall Weaver, who set this competition for his, I think it's 500th video. He says, show 5 records that you've listened to more than 100 times. Well, sorry, Randall, and sorry, Rob, but I'm going to go beyond 5 and beyond 10, but I'll try and make this quick. So, first, let's get the obvious candidates out the way first. Right, I've definitely listened to this album more than 100 times. Not this particular version, but I've got multiple versions. So I'm absolutely over 100 listens of that. Also, that one, bought that on the day of its release because I'd already bought Go Your Own Way as the single and I was absolutely blown away by it. I'd completely lost touch with Fleetwood Mac at the time. The only track I knew was Albatross. Didn't even hear Fleetwood Mac. But this one came along after Go Your Own Way, and I bought that on the day of the release. It's been listened to just hundreds of times, and of course this one. We've all got these three albums, and I've listened to them all more than 100 times. But these are the others. They're in no particular order. So Randall, if you're watching, uh, consider those three as like freebies, and just pick 5 from these, however many there's going to be. So I've listened to Bob's Time Out of Mind more than 100 times. It's the album I keep going back to. It was Blood on the Tracks. I still love the early stuff. The times are changing and um, freewheeling and so on. But this one, I just love the sound of this one, even though I know Dylan wasn't pleased with it. And of course, it all came out and was corrected in the Fragments box set. Another American icon. I've listened to this album more than 100 times. This is Wrecking Ball by Bruce Springsteen, one of his later albums. It includes the immortal Land of Hope and Dreams. It's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And I know a lot of people are turned off by Springsteen in the later years. Everyone keeps going back to Born to Run, Darkness, The River, Born the USA, and Nebraska even. And I love all of those. They're all fantastic. But this, as a late career album, is stellar. Brilliant. I've listened to this album more than 100 times, and that's A Walk Across the Rooftops by the Blue Nile. Utterly fantastic. Great electronic, mostly electronic instrumentation, and this very lovely yearning voice from the main songwriter, Paul Buchanan. That's a brilliant, brilliant album. I've listened to this album more than 100 times. This is when ABBA, the album, this is when ABBA transitioned from being more of a bubblegum, it's probably the wrong term, bubblegum pop act, where they started to sing about more mature issues, the name of the game, one man, one woman, and so on. But that's a brilliant album as well. In fact, all these albums are brilliant. That's why I've listened to them 100 times or more. Peter Gabriel 3, what a breakthrough. It includes Biko. Of course, it closes with Biko, the famous Biko. Don't listen to that one anymore. I had my fill of that in concert over many, many years, and fist raised high. Fantastic, but I so heard it so many times, I'm sick of it. But the rest of the album still holds my interest. Another one from that period, although having said that, this is 1975, I recall, and that's Mike Oldfield's Ommadawn. Far and away his best album. Scorching electric guitar on that. Wonderful. Uh, Camille Saint-Saëns, classic in the classical vein. Symphony Number 3, the Organ Symphony. I always say to rock fans who've got an interest or an openness to classical music, go to this one. It's got absolutely amazing, dramatic organ playing on this. It's fantastic, and the climax, the fourth movement in this, it just will blow your socks off. Absolutely fantastic. Uh, the final album by The Police, Synchronicity, wonderful too. Um, Only let down by songs written by Stuart and Andy, but the rest of the album is great. It might be just too rich in classic Sting written songs if it hadn't had those two kind of grit in the oyster tracks to kind of bring it back down to earth. Um, the first album I bought by my favorite band back in the day, not so much now, but they were back in the day, and that was the budget priced Genesis Live, which has the definitive versions of 5 classic songs: Watch of the Skies, Get 'Em Out by Friday, Return of the Giant Hogweed, the Immortal Musical Box, and The Knife. And The Knife on this album, just before The Knife, there's a bit of audience noise, and you can hear someone shout The Knife. And every time I saw Genesis after that, when I first saw them, 75, every time I saw Genesis in those early years, somebody would shout The Knife, just like on this album. Something quite different, wonderful album from 1979, London Calling by The Clash. 1980, Gaucho, my favorite Steely Dan album. Still sounds amazing. A single. Not, you don't often find a 12-inch single in my listening room here. But I was listening to this just last week, and this is just fantastic. And, after the album Sons and Fascination, Simple Minds, I kind of got some sort of a groove going with that really electronic, kind of cold krautrock influenced sound. And then they came up with New Gold Dream, which just raised the stakes massively. And this is the opening track. And this particular version has got the extended intro from Charlie Burchill on guitar, and it's just sounds massive, but not so massive that it just kind of becomes kind of a bit irritating, like Sparkle in the Rain onwards. But this was their high point, maybe the best track as well. Prefab Sprout, not commonly accepted as their most favorite album. Rob Walker picked Steve McQueen, or Two Wheels Good, I think it's called in the United States. But this album, Jordan, The Comeback, is just so varied. It's utterly beautiful. Fantastic album. Another 70s, 80s icon, my favorite album by Elvis Costello and King of America. T-Bone Burnett, I think, produces this one. It's country influenced, but it's just fantastic. Brilliant, brilliant album. From the similar period, Frankie Goes to Hollywood and Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. If you can get past Relax, it's kind of the big single. Pick up Two Tribes, of course, and The Power of Love. But this is a double album produced by Trevor Horn. I think it includes Steve Howe on guitar. Bit on the quiet though. But that's a great, great album too. Something a little bit more obscure, but for fans of the period, and Phil Collins' parent band, the first album by Brand X, Unorthodox Behavior, is my demonstration disc for the hi-fi setup. It's absolutely great. And by the way, I haven't got it here, but I've also listened to Stevie Ray Vaughan's Couldn't Stand the Weather 100 times as well, or more than 100 times. And finally, the best album in their career, and the third album they did for the Virgin Records label, and that is Tangerine Dream and Ricochet, which is a quasi-live album, or a live album has music that's knitted together to create two pieces of music here called Ricochet Part 1 and 2, and it's great. Again, it's it kind of the transition period for the more ethereal head music to where the pulsating rhythms started coming, the sequences started coming in big style, and before they kind of lost it. So that's another 3 or 4 albums which were good after this one, but I think this is their high point. So Randall, I've overdone it there on this competition, but don't worry about it, mate. And Rob, you're going to do better next time, mate. I'm sure you've got more than 10. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you on the next one. Ta-da!